Hello there, guys. Thank you for having me here today and offering this wonderful opportunity to share some ideas on what DAOs are and how can we make them better. So before we dive into it, let's make a historical detour. And I apologize for you for not talking any development-specific topic, but I think that some general history and management and liberal arts can also be interesting for you just to enlarge imagination. So, we are now in the year 1602, and we witness the birth of the Dutch East India Company. Dutch East India Company basically is the first corporation in the world that issued stock. And why it's important? Because this organization basically ruled for 200 years the whole trades between Europe and Southeastern Asia. They shipped 5,000 ships and 1 million Europeans to Southeastern Asia, which is as double as their closest competitor. So this example shows us one thing, that with proper structure, with proper organization, millions of people can be turned into a finely working mechanism that is able to achieve any goal that is set before it. Let's move forward in time, and on the verge of 19th and 20th century, we witness the birth of C corporations, Delaware-type C corporations. C corporations right now serve as the golden standard of corporate structure. Board of directors, CEOs, shareholders, all of this was formed due to long and painful process when lawyers and other legal people and businessmen worked together to find out how to create a structure that works best. And among C corporations right now, there are McDonald's, Apple, and Starbucks, just to give you an example of how good this type of corporation is. So the question that we're facing now is DAO a next thing that helps us to develop, that helps us to achieve something great? Before we answer to that question, let us though watch a short video clip. I hope it plays. It is playing, but basically in this video clip, the Gordon Gekko says one classic line, that greed is good. Greed makes people effective, and greed is the next thing that will help us to build good businesses. So let us now dive into the topic that we all gathered here to think about. What is a decentralized autonomous organization? Actually, just today I humbled upon and wrote down on a piece of paper, really Web 3.0, a definition of a DAO. So, DAO, entity with no central leadership, where decisions are made and governed by community, organized around a set of rules enforced on a blockchain. Really simple and really neat. It seems like this type of structure should be really effective by itself. However, is it so? I think that there are three main challenges that right now DAOs face. First of them is the scope. Let's say there is some crucial question of strategy. Is the whole DAO able to decide on the strategy? Is the whole community able to point out the directions where the project should go? This leads us to the question of depth. Is everyone in a DAO an expert in the field? Do they share the level of expertise that is needed to actually take certain actions and address certain questions? If anyone an expert, actually. And the third one, efficiency. How fast and how efficient is the whole community able to force some rules and decisions? How fast quorums can be met? Right now, I mean, not really fast. So, today, I think we're able to offer maybe solutions to at least some of those issues. And the first gentleman that will help us finding those solutions is Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman is the American very famous economist and statist that was granted a Nobel Prize for his research. And in 1970, in the New York Times, he published an article that constituted his doctrine. The doctrine is really simple. The main goal of business is to generate profit, is to constantly generate more and more profit, and by doing so, it brings value to the community. This doctrine was also complemented by another big thought, that shareholders is the cornerstone of the whole business. Everything the business does has to be done for the sake of shareholders. Everyone who holds shares is the king of the business, so to say. Later on, this doctrine was shifted slightly, and the concept of profit was changed into the concept of value. Because, for example, such companies like Facebook or Amazon, in the first, they were not generating profits, but they were generating more and more value in forms of new markets and more users. So we sum it up. Right now, the main goal of business is to generate value for its shareholders. Please, let's remember this postulate. The second one is that greed actually good. Why we need this idea is because for business to generate value, they need, well, people. They need someone who will do actually tasks, who will make calls, who will decide on stuff. I mean, they need us. And to keep us motivated, they need to keep us greedy. And they need to make sure that we do our job properly and to our best efforts. So, now that we've set up these simple rules, that greed is good and that shareholders has the primacy and the organizational structure is extremely important, why don't we shift this whole idea from shareholder primacy to token holder primacy? Let us imagine a DAO as a form of corporation that is structured like, let's say, Delaware C Corporation. And then we get this formula where all actions of the DAO has to be bringing value to token holders. What this brings us? Here on the left, we see the simple formula for a corporation. There are stakeholders that are voting for board of directors, that then hires management, management supervises employees, standard stuff. Now let's create it into a DAO, because right now a DAO basically is a really decentralized and fragmented amount of individuals. However, if we imagine them as a corporation, then we have token holders who then vote from the most active ones of them for a board of directors. They form a board of directors, the guys with the most expertise in the field, the most active ones. Those ones then hire, quote-unquote, contributors, actual people who would do some tasks to help DAO achieve its goal. However, with the concept of greed, although it really makes people effective and efficient, we have to remember that control has to be there, because sometimes greed turn people into, well, not really effective, but just greedy guys who want value for themselves and not for the community. So independent audit committee has to be created from third-party on-chain analysis teams, from the members of the partners communities, and from, for example, angel investors. Let's take a closer look at the board of directors, because you might ask the question, why do we actually need a board of directors in the DAO, since it's this digital ultimate democracy? But actually, we need them for a really simple things. First of all, because the board of directors is elected through the voting of the DAO between members of the DAO, it brings the idea of a more direct representation. Board of directors would set up goals and strategies for the whole DAO. And at the same time, board of directors we ensured by voting for them that they have enough expertise in the field to actually do the tasks that are set to do. So, in this system, we get a number of people that are experts in the field, that are motivated to stay there. How they are motivated? Because there is a multi-sig awaiting them, let's say after 1 year they served in a board of directors, and they know that if in a year they achieve their KPIs and they achieve the goals that DAO set before them, they will get this bonus. So here we implement the idea of the effective greed. Then at the same time, they are accountable to token holders. They have a fiduciary duty before them. So they are controlled also by the independent control committee. Thus, we ensure that they just do not sit there for a year, don't do anything, or even worse, spend the budgets of the DAO on something that was not particularly optimal. In this case, all three issues that we painted out in the beginning are actually dealt with. So, scope. Right now, we have an entity, board of directors, that is actually elected to decide strategy of the DAO, that is eligible to answer to any question of any size. Depth. They are elected from the most active DAO participants. So we make sure that they have the expertise needed to actually play the role effectively and with proper efforts. And combine those two, efficiency. Now DAOs are able to operate in this extremely fast-changing environment with greater efficiency. They're able to solve questions that are before them. They're able to solve issues. And combining those three, we now understand that the idea where everyone is voting, that everyone is kind of participating in the government, is not the best ones, maybe. Maybe we need this indirect representation. Maybe we need someone who is actually, with their money, eligible to do tasks that has clear goals before them. So I hope that this, my take on DAOs, doesn't offend any DAO supremacists here. And thank you for listening to me.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I believe we have some time to take questions from the audience. So I will read out the questions for you and also translate for you. 최근 1인치가 DAO에 집중하고 있는데 앞으로 CFI와 DeFi 모두 DAO 가버넌스가 중요한 역할을 하리라 보시는 이유가 무엇인가요? So 1inch is now concentrating on DAO. So what do you think is the reason that DAO governance will play an important role in CFI and DeFi in the future?
That is actually an extremely good question and a tricky one. Because first of all, we has to remember about the regulators, and we has to understand the role of regulators that they play in both CFI and DeFi. And we believe that DAO is important because it brings community together, and at the same time, it kind of make this burden of the regulations of the possible ones easier. 1inch is concentrating now on the idea of how we can change the DAO space, because we see the huge potential. We see now lots of projects, DAOs, that are trying to do certain things and updates, but are unable to meet quorums in a timely manner. And thus, it slows down the development, and the community as a whole is being affected by it. So we believe that by creating this effective DAO structure, this decentralized autonomous corporations, we help to develop the whole community of Web 3.0.
Okay, thank you for your question. I hope that answered your question. 답변이 도움이 되셨으면 좋겠습니다. 네, 다음 질문입니다. 다오에서 일하시면서 개인적으로 느끼신 다오의 구조의 장점과 한계는 무엇이 있나요? So what do you think personally is the benefits and disadvantage of DAO structure?
Well, personally, I believe in the idea that when we point out, let's say, 10 people, and we give each one of those 10 people clear goal and clear tasks to perform in a sense of a year, and we tell them, if you achieve, let's say, if you achieve 2 million subscribers on Twitter, which you guys don't really use, but forgive me, then you get this bonus. If we reach this level of technical advancements, if we go through 10 updates, you get this bonus. I, as a person, believe that they will do anything that it takes to actually achieve those goals, to actually perform. However, when you talk to a whole DAO, let's say there is 2,000 people, for example, or 5,000, then this spreads evenly across them. This idea that someone else might do it slows down the whole process. So I do believe in personal responsibility, and I do believe in greed. Hope that answers it.
Yes. 네, 답변이 되셨으면 좋겠습니다. 이번에 세 번째 질문이 있습니다. 다오를 구성하면서 가장 어려운 점은 무엇이라고 생각하십니까? So the third question is, what's the most important thing in establishing or creating a DAO?
In this new form of DAO as a corporation, the most important thing would be how it's structurized, how it constitutionalized. So it is really important on the very first stage to write down and set down a proper constitution with as clearly as possible written down and broke down roles of each actor here, roles of each member of board of directors, role of the independent committee, roles of DAO, whether the DAO as a whole will have an opportunity to vote down a board of director or a member of a board of director if they think that he is not performing well. So the clearest as possible structure from the beginning helps to solve lots of problems in the future.
Yes, thank you. Clear structure and roles.
Yeah.